You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode 113.
A podcast uncovering identity, color, and love, where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Vias.
First up, my voice is going to be a little weird. I'm recovering from a really bad cold, so I'm going to sound a little crackly. So today we're talking about the perfect planner. And I am one of these types of people that go out and buy lots of notebooks. And I also love lots of planners. So in the past, I have spent a lot of money on planners. And I've done all of the different kind of planners that have been out there. Any of them that you heard of, like the Passion Planner, etc., to basically help me manage my time better. And so every year, I look forward to that. Every calendar year, I'd be like, oh yeah, I get to get a new planner. And a few years ago, I found what the perfect planner is. And that is actually your brain. And you don't need to spend any money. You have it already right there. So today I'm going to kind of reconcile this idea of planning your time, managing your time, in relation to the fact that you already have what it takes. There is nothing that you need to go out and purchase. There isn't even a course or an app or anything that you need to go out and do to help you manage your time. Your brain is already there and it's so well equipped. And all I'm going to do in this episode for the next 10 minutes is talk about how to utilize that so it becomes the perfect planner. So your brain is actually planning for you. And so humans are actually the only species that can think about the future and then can plan for the future. That is kind of something amazing. If you think about other mammals, they can't think about the future and plan for it and make decisions ahead of time. So it is one of those things that have been given to us as a gift that for our benefit, for evolutionary purposes. So we already have this ability that not other mammals have that exists today. And that is something why that I think when I heard that concept where I was like, oh, I don't need to go out and buy a planner. And a perfect example of this is, you ever notice when you make decisions ahead of time? And I want you to think about when you think of like going to a party. I mean, you never say, oh, I'm going to drink 2 bottles of wine. You don't say, oh, I'm going to eat 5 cupcakes at a party. You usually think, oh, well, I'm going to go have 1-2 glasses of wine, or I'm not going to have the cupcakes. And then what ends up happening is in the moment, we don't follow through with that plan. And that's kind of a different story. And I am going to talk about that in upcoming episodes. But what I want you to realize is that when you do make those decisions ahead of time, when you're planning for the future, and ahead of time, I'll clarify this for you. It actually only means really a day ahead of time, 24 hours a day, is that your brain will automatically, you don't even have to do it, will make the best decisions for you. That is just a real life example. If you notice anytime you go to think about something ahead of time, the next day or a week from now, you have such a higher chance of making better decisions. So you see, you already have that ability in your brain. And if you notice when you are currently using that, you make the best decisions. So your brain is already the perfect planner. But the problem is how do we get it? How do we get our brain to actually be that perfect planner? If the equipment's there and it already kind of works, it's already working for you to make great decisions ahead of time, how do you get it so that it's actually working the way that you want it to in your life? And when I started this journey, I found that there's kind of 2 buckets of 2 categories that I guess I would say where we don't hone our ability to plan the way that we want to. And the first one is that we're never taught to do this. I don't know about you, but my parents never taught me how to manage my time. They didn't say, hey, in order to do this, it's better if you sit down and plan and you see what happens and then you list out the things you need to do and put it in your calendar and put the amount of time and you do the math. They didn't sit down and do that, nor in formal educational systems, that doesn't happen. There isn't a place where they continuously teach you how to manage your time, how to plan your time. And so that's kind of the first thing. It's an ability that although you have the equipment, and it's kind of like learning how to pour a glass of water from a pitcher, if you notice that you can have an arm and you can rotate your elbow to pour a glass of water, but all toddlers need to practice that. And we aren't given that opportunity to develop that. So we get into adulthood and we're like, okay, how do I manage my time? And so it's that. It's like learning how to pour a glass of water. It's learning how to walk. It's an ability that has to be learned, and then it has to continue to be refined until you can pour exactly the number of millimeters that you want. And the second category is when you think about planning, or when you think about the idea of going down and sitting down and planning out your whole week, there's a whole lot of emotion associated with that. There's fears that come up. A lot of people are like, well, I want to be flexible. I want to be spontaneous. What if something comes up? I don't know what to do. All of those things, it's basically rooted in some form of fear and anxiety. So even before we can even hone those skills, in order to have our brain be the perfect planner, already our brain is throwing us in fear, even though we have the capability. And that's the kind of the paradoxical thing of our brain. It's running in constant contrast and paradoxes because it's so rooted in helping us survive, but it's also rooted in helping us thrive. And people have heard that, survive and thrive. And that all of that's true. It's just a paradox that it's overcoming that. So even before we can get to planning, our brain's already like decided, this is not going to work. It's not going to allow me to do this. It's not really going to save me time. If I have to plan my time, I'm going to waste time. All of those things stop us before we can even hone in our ability to learn how to perfectly plan. So how do we deal with that paradox? Well, our natural tendency is to go out to do something, which is exactly what I did. I went out and I bought a new planner every year. So I thought, okay, I needed a new system. I need a new app. All of those things. And if you purchase something, it's okay. Go ahead and do it. I totally get it. If you haven't, instead of doing something, I want you to think about what it is you're currently doing. So if you bought a new planner or invested in some system, use it and ask yourself, what is your system? What is it that you're doing right now? If you're like, well, I don't have a system, what I mean is, what is it that you are doing? Do you wake up every morning and decide, in that moment, this is what I'm going to do? Do you make a list every morning of the things that need to get done and then check it off? Do you do things by minute, hour by hour? How do you do it? What is your current system? And think about that. And as you go through your current system, I only want you to ask yourself, what are the 5 things you like about that system? And what are the 5 things that you don't like about the system? Now, it might seem like, well, why don't I just go and start doing all of this other thing about trying to get my brain to plan and practice that? Because before you can actually figure that out, you have to see your reasons. And there is a reason and there is a benefit to you staying in whatever system you're in. It is benefiting you somehow. It's either keeping you comfortable, keeping you from facing your fears. It's doing something. And it's good to know that, because there are going to be moments that when you want to manage your time and when you're ready to go about planning your time and going through that process, which I'm going to be talking about in upcoming episodes. I've talked about it in past episodes, about going about how to plan your time so you can manage your time in a masterful way. You need to understand the reasons why the old system or whatever it is you're doing, why is it so important to you? What are the benefits? Where is it benefiting you right now today? Because there is a benefit. Otherwise, you wouldn't continue to hold on to it. And understand what are those things that you like about the system? What are things you love about that system? And then also, what are the things that you don't like about that system? So I don't want you to actually do anything. Actually, I don't even want you to plan. I only want you to look and see what's your current system and what is it bringing to your life today? Because when you understand those reasons, you will be so much more from this place of like willingness to go into a system of saying, okay, I want to plan. I want to learn this life skill, because planning is a life skill. It's a skill that I continue to develop. And I have been doing time management for a few years now, and I continuously learn and grow in the process. I'm not doing the same process I started out doing a couple years ago. So that willingness and understanding comes from understanding your current situation. What's the system? What you like about it? What you don't like about it? And really understanding that, and then growing that willingness to be like, okay, maybe I want to learn how to plan my time and let go of some of those fears, like this is not going to work. I want to be spontaneous and live in the moment, and all of those kind of fears and obstacles that come up in your way. Your willingness to go there, your willingness to address some of those things, it'll feel so much easier when you can understand what it is currently, the system that you're currently working with. And from that place of willingness, you'll be able to plan your life the way that you want to, perfectly plan it the way that you want to. That's all I have for you this week. I'll check back with you next.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.